Good afternoon, all. I will call the meeting to order. We would all stand and face the flag. The hand in ours will be the flag of allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Fine, will you take roll call, please?
Yep, Commissioner Dibdle,
Here.
Commissioner Corbin,
Here.
Commissioner Wire,
Here.
Commissioner Shaw,
Here.
Mayor Dennert.
Here. We have the agenda in front of us. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second. Any further comments or discussion? Hearing any, all in favor signify by aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. We'll move down into new business. Item number 1, 2022 budget discussion.
Okay.
Turn it over to Simon.
So what I'm going to do is go through here with basically just highlighting areas that are changes from previous year, significant changes. And then as we get into each department, most of the department heads are here. So if you have specific questions in those areas, it gives you the opportunity to ask. So that's kind of where I'm planning to start. The first part of this, if you look over on the side, it just as a general reference, where it's green is revenue. When I get down to expenditures, those are blue, just as we're going through. The as far as our tax revenue, property tax revenue, that we submitted and did back in September, and that's been submitted to the county already. There's approximately $70,000 in additional revenue that we're expecting from property taxes this year compared to last year. Little bit of an increase on the licenses and permit side. That's due to the addition of marijuana application fees. And that's primarily the only major change in that area. As I scroll down to revenue from grants that come from, we do not have any FEMA grants that we're anticipating coming in this year. We did receive a FEMA bridge grant already, but that came in 2021, right? The bridges one we just got came in this year. And that's the small portion of the FEMA bridge project that we're doing. The rest of that, we won't see that FEMA money coming in until after that project is done. And we are looking to do FEMA financing through the DPS for that for approximately $3.7 million of that $4.8 million project. Rough figures, but let's see. Federal grants, this is the ARPA funds, 650,000. We've received half of it this year. The other half will come in next year at that 650,000. And then there's also 2.9 million that's included in this federal grant, and that's RD money that will come in as we finish that water project. So that's the big increase in that area. The rest of these items, pretty standard, similar. When I spoke with the county regarding motor vehicle licenses, they are expecting that to drop, which is why that number dropped. Let's see. These, you'll see in here, we've got items from the prior year that have zero amounts and new revenue areas in here. These are from moving the pool and the parks from the 201 fund into the 101 fund. We also have to account for that revenue in that 101 fund. It's not a significant amount, but we do need to account for it, probably in the area of about 60,000-ish. So that's what those additional items that weren't in there in previous years. Scroll down. Most of these are all pretty similar. If you look at the miscellaneous revenue, not much of an increase there, $3,000-4,000. Operating revenues, those are pretty much the same as last year as well. And then other financing sources, you'll see I have this yellow here. This is where we would transfer funds in from other departments. I do not have those in place yet. We're still waiting on end numbers from RD to know where we need to put funds to. But we could potentially transfer funds in from enterprise funds, transfer funds in from Second Cent. When we get down to the bottom of the general fund, we're pretty close to where we need to be for the year. So not a significant amount in there. The big thing here is debt issued, and that's a pretty significant jump. A good portion of that is RD project. The other side of that is the FEMA, that 3.7 million that will come in from that interim financing, and that is 0% interest on that project. So it's not costing us anything on the interest side. The one item here is a recommendation I would make to approve and we won't obviously do this today, but to approve a $5 million bond on the street side of that. I spoke with Colliers, who is doing the bonds for the rest of our RD project, and the justification or the thought behind that is right now we can get these interest rates at approximately 2.2, 2.3%. If we wait until this entire project's done, or the other 3 to 17 million projects we're looking at over the next 5 years, and do it then, we are probably looking at rates of 3, 4, 5, 6, and who knows where those percentages are going. It just makes more sense financially to use that really low interest money now and use our cash for those other projects going down the road. So that would be my recommendation, is to use. Yes, I did go look, and we've actually got quite a bit of room yet to look at other projects as well. We have a couple that are falling off. Our geo bond for the pool will fall off next year. We had Lewis and Clark that fell off this year. So that frees up approximately $450,000 in general fund debt that we won't have going on after next year. So yeah, and I can pull up I can give you a full debt picture too in a little bit. This item here, this CCM&R reserve, this is for repairs that they're planning to do at the community center. This is our 60% split of that. DSU will contract for those repairs to be done, and then they will bill us when they're complete. This includes the life floor and painting that you guys approved just recently, and then they're projecting around 400,000 for sections of a new roof, but they don't have any concrete numbers on that. But I do have 60% of that calculated in there as well. Given it's a building 20 years old, flat roof, it needs to be done. They've got leaks and stuff before there's additional damage. So that's what that is in there. All right, now we get down into expenditures. The budget that's comprised of the mayor and commission area budget, not a significant difference in there. The Muni code is one area that wasn't in there in the past, and that's the codification. They're hoping to, I just got an email that the lawyer is reviewing it now. So hopefully we'll see that within the next few weeks, kind of a summary of that. This 1,545 is the hosting. That's an annual fee for them. It keeps everything hosted so we can search it, and it also provides us that updating of our code going forward. This is calculated in at maybe 3 to 4%. I have when you guys decide what your raises are going to be, or what the city's raises are going to be, I will adjust these accordingly. Yeah, when you're done negotiating. And Under professional services, we will not be expending all of this in 2021. That Muni code piece, we won't see those last two invoices till 2022. So that's just carryover. In the past, we had set a contingency fund of $150,000 based, and that has not changed in as far back as I can look. I would guess 20, 30 years. I don't think that's necessarily applicable. I think we probably need to look at raising that to fit our needs. So I recommend raising that contingency to 450,000. This is not something we necessarily budget to spend. It's for those emergency expenditures. If you're looking at a $30 million budget, you're looking at that's 1.5% of contingency. Nothing with the attorney. As we go into the finance department, you'll see drops in salaries and wages because HR is now set up as its own department. City administrator is set up as its own department. So those come out of and reduce the wages there. You also see staff is split between, all of my staff is split between the finance office and then the MMU building for utilities. And so we share their wages there. As we get into work comp, we did not do much of anything for an increase there. We're not, I think I might have to adjust that. Yes. This 396 is what we paid for current year. We are not expecting an increase based on conversations with our work comp people. So we will calculate that and leave it where it is for going into 2022. That invoice should be coming and we'll pay that at the beginning of the year. So we at least won't see anything for the current year. Group insurance, we're anticipating maybe 5.5%. I'm not sure if we've got that final letter yet from them, but that's what's calculated here. Insurance is the finances. When you look at that budget, it's kind of moved around a little bit because some of it's been divvied out into HR and into city administrator. So most of those go down in a lot of areas. This additional 29,000, or not additional, the additional 6,000 in the professional services budget is tied to the finishing of the development of our Civic Plus website. You'll see training and professional development, and here is an item that was not listed previously. It was all grouped with travel expense before. That will be broken out by each department as we go through. The additional expense in dues and subscriptions is that annual portion of the Civic Plus. As we go down into city administrator, some of these are obviously new since he's new, but portions of it were applied to the finance office in 2021. They're just broken out here, and then it's got his training and such as well. Significant there. Jameson is also the city administrator position, as well as HR are also broken out. 60% applicable to their departments, and the other is split between water, sewer, and electric. As we go through down into the human resources budget, we look at potentially adding an HR assistant in that role. That individual would be split as well. The insurance piece there. Training and professional development. This is not training and professional development for HR. It's more citywide training specifically. There's a number of programs or things that she'd like to bring in, some leadership training that would affect staff throughout the city, not just HR. General government buildings. We are looking to add a new building maintenance person. 60% of their position would be maintenance of general government buildings. The other 40% of that position would be applicable to the aquatic center. they would spend a good chunk of their summers focused on working out at the aquatic center and keeping maintenance and chemicals and everything good there. We have architectural fees in here. It was in here last year as well. But it's just one of those that's carried forward, architecture for the new city hall. It's not an addition, it's just not expensed in 2021. It will be expensed in 2022. This capital outlay buildings, this is specifically to, actually, I think I got that in there twice. Oh, no, this is, sorry, this is the use of those funds. The reserve funds that we have allocated up above in here as an expenditure. Down into engineering. Not a significant change in total expense for the staffing, increase of about $20,000 with the addition of code enforcement and some possible restructuring there. Most of the rest of that is pretty similar to prior year. As we get down into the police department, we've added another officer, so there is a bit of an increase there from last year to this year, approximately 20,000. Difference being that we have a member of the police department that will be out a good portion of that year. They're bringing in a new, so we'll only have to account for that additional wages for probably 25% of the year. But that will be an increase going into 2023. There's an increase in overtime for additional training. You'll see, I broke salaries, wages, and part-time temporary out. It helps us calculate and track a little bit better. The one big item that does change for the within the police budget is the 911 for the county. They are planning a $53,000 improvement that wasn't in last year. Last year it was 135,000-ish, I believe. That was budgeted for the 911 system. That's an increase there of 60,000 probably. A little bit of additional expense in the travel area for training, or additional training that they're looking at. And down here, there's additional expense in there built into the training piece. Most of the rest of this stays pretty similar. Capital outlay, they do have a couple items in here. 13,000 expected for tasers, and then that's a new car, correct? That's the, yes, for some reason I don't have that typed in there. Fire department, very similar to last year. So go through, we do need to update the firewall out at the fire department, so a little additional expense there. And we have budgeted in here approximately, right now I have $12,000 for uniforms, but our intent is to increase that to 25,000. In our last discussion with safety, that we have 5 sets that are not up to code, or 10, how many sets that are not up to code?
Yeah, we have 9 complete sets.
9.
And then we have 3 guys with payments that are.
Okay, so approximately 12 sets that need some updating to meet code. Not much change in the rest of that. Highway and streets, not much change in the beginning part of that. As we go down. Most of their operating expenses are pretty similar to what they were in the past. The big changes here are primarily capital outlay. We were looking to purchase 2 pickups, a payloader, a motor grader, a plow, and 3 used chassis that go on a couple of those, 1 used chassis. Oh, number 3, sorry, 1 used chassis, and then a dump truck box. And that's what those additional breakout there is. The RD project, this one is set to potentially fluctuate yet as we get final numbers from Banner. But we're anticipating in the area of 1.4 million yet for RD project for streets. As we roll into snow and ice removal, nothing significant in change there. As we roll into storm drainage, the big piece here, and sometimes I hesitate to wonder if we should be putting that into our storm drain budget for the RD project, not the RD, sorry, the FEMA project, or if we need to create a separate item to break that out.
What I have for storm drain doesn't create anything.
Okay,
We created
you want
that
a
separate.
separate account for that? Okay. So we will break that out, but in here, the number that you're looking at has total expenditures for RD, and then also pop that down a little bit. Right now I have the $4.8 million for the FEMA project. I will break that out into a new set of accounts for that project. So that puts approximately a little under 2 million. That is RD project. Street cleaning, no, not a significant change there. We've got some year 1 of a maintenance agreement. It's the only significant, I guess, jump there. Restricted use site, almost identical to what it was prior year, up about $1,500. Airport expense, we do not have any large projects going on at the airport for 2022. We do have a couple changes. The airport will require, potentially require seeding of that grass. We have reached out to, you guys did that study, probably 6-8 months ago on whether or not they could, on what kind of crops they could plant out there. They want to do something different than what was proposed in that study. Alfalfa apparently is not good out there right now. So they've reached out to see if they can plant something else in there in its place. If that's not the case, we would look at having to put grass seed down. So that's what that additional $28,000 is. We're planning worst case scenario. Hopefully that's not the case and they'll approve what's been requested, but that's what that is. They're looking for additional flasher on the runway. That's a $4,700 expense. They're requesting a storage building, which they've requested in the past, an additional building out there. We did increase the cost estimate on that to approximately 38% or 30% up to $78,000. This $97,000 is the engineering piece for the next project that they're looking at doing in 2023. That there is approximately just under the airport budget. They have approximately 300,000, I think, in reserves right now. Let me pop that one open real quick. They're expecting that airport, there to be a portion of that airport project that is not funded. We have $3.68 3.18 million, or 318,000 in there currently, and looking to add 50,000 into that to cover that 2023 expense. As we go, those are health, Interlakes Community Health. These are essentially donations we make to other entities. Library budget. It's up approximately 30,000 from prior year. They're looking for some additional furniture, which is 10,000 of that. Looking at some additional PCs, shelving there. Other than that, nothing significant in there either. Move down to the auditorium. We've got a floor scrubber added into there. Roof cap was not expended in 2021, so that portion has moved into 2022, and then a floor scrubber has been added for that building. Parks and Forestry. So this was our 201 budget that's been moved into the 101, which is why when you look over here and you see nothing for actual for prior years, that's why. Staffing has not changed significantly. Mike has asked to add an additional part-time person for flowers. And we've added a little additional staffing for the warming house in the winter. Most of the recreation is done through the community center. That was one area that was missed from prior years. Let's see, as we scroll down, we have approximately 20,000 budgeted for overlay of the rec trail. Insect control budget, that's another area that was moved from 201. Those numbers are identical to what they were last year. In the capital outlay, which is probably the only couple areas where they have a capital outlay, building and structure, sorry. $50,000 for a pickleball court to replace the horseshoe pit up at the fence, $30K for the park well, which we've may or may not be expending yet in this year, so that could be adjusted. $20K for the ADA trail at Bachman Bellotti, $20K for concrete around concessions, and then $30K to put in a bathroom at Totland while they're already working on some water sewer stuff up there. So, and then in the machinery and auto equipment budget, $75,000 for a mower, $25,000 for a groomer, and then $10K for a used pickup, $19K for a grass overseeder, and $11K for a plug aerator. The MAC was a little bit more challenging to budget. We kind of took numbers from a couple prior years, but since we haven't been open, it's a little hard to get real specific. I think we've done most of the construction and remodeling stuff up there already. So that helps us not need to be putting money into those items. This is that 40% of a building maintenance person. We would look to hire a pool manager and then lifeguards to open that pool. This 230,000 that's showing budgeted is almost identical to what we had budgeted a couple of years ago. Let's see. The difference here in planning and zoning, we've just reallocated staffing a little differently than we had in the past. Part of the engineering department in the past had been allocated to planning and zoning, and we have them more directly tied to engineering. And that's the only significant difference there. These promotions are essentially the donations we look to make to other entities. These are they're the ones that I presented to you a couple months ago. Most of them are really close to what they had asked for in the past. There's not a lot of significant differences in there, a couple thousand one way or another. The one difference here, this Forward Madison one, it shows 290,000 in this budget, but we have an area, it comes out of our third penny. So 140,000 of it comes at a different location. It's not that we're giving them any less than we had in the past, just showing differently on the report. This debt service is anticipated interest for RD and the street sales tax bond for 2022. I will finish or finalize that as we get the rest of the numbers from RD, but that's probably pretty close. That 150,000 is what we would anticipate paying in debt interest for 2022 for storm and streets. Currently, I have nothing in here for transfers out of the general fund. As we get through the rest of them, figure out where we need to move funds from, but to cover other areas. So I do not have that filled in there yet. These are our capital outlay expenditures, what we're planning for large purchases for 2022 from reserves, 25,000, sorry, not from, these are dollars that go into our reserves, 25,000 for a fire truck, 50,000 into that airport, 27,000 into storm sewer, 75,000 into restricted use, 10,000 into cell construction, 40,000 into a shop building, 10,000 into a fire building, 15,000 into the library building, 500,000 into the city hall building, 500,000 into the police building. Those are the same building. Playground equipment, 10,000, ball field. We are, right now, there's approximately 1.7 million in that reserve for the city hall. This would look to put another million in there, so 2.7. They're anticipating 4.8 to 5 million is where we're at right now. Obviously, the longer we wait to do that, the more it's going to go up. We would look to do a. There's a, you could, if you're ready to break ground now. Yep. Yeah, nope. That's certainly something we can take a look at and talk about. We have the capability, we could do a sales tax bond on it and be perfectly within our constitutional debt. Absolutely.
No, that's too long. That's it. That's your quota.
Well, I got a little catch up.
Again, this is just a preliminary budget, but that's the commission. We could, you guys could decide to change it. 15,000 for a rec trail, $10,000 in for pool repairs at the MAC, and then 10,000 into the ADA reserve. So we are looking at currently putting 1.312 into reserve. Sorry. Yes, 1.312 into reserves. Last year we put 880,000 in. Lodging and entertainment tax, that's essentially where budgeted where it was last year. A little hard to make any real changes to that, just from the standpoint of, we don't have, basing it off of last year's numbers, how to project up from there is a little bit of a struggle. In this lodging and entertainment tax, we have approximately 13,000 that goes out into advertising, goes into the what that account is called. Helps with, I think with domestic violence or an entity like that. I can dig it up in more detail, but the additional in here is for street banners. Something that wasn't budgeted for, and we'd like to add for next summer with the chamber's assistance. 85,000 of this 3rd cent sales tax goes to the chamber, and the other 140,000 goes to Lake Area. We currently have a community development fund that hasn't been used in a number of years. It's just been spent down. Last year, 146,000 of it went into the community center. There's a current balance of 27,000. I would look to probably do the same thing with that for winter banners. Yes.
Oh, we have seasonal banners.
Yes, that's the intent, is
I
that.
didn't know anything about summer banners.
Like that. Yeah. Any questions on
I didn't know it was a plan. Okay, keep going.
We would like to take that 27,000 and transfer that. It's designed to be used for something community related or community betterment. So I would recommend we close that account and transfer that to the community center as part of that stipend. We're estimating 1.775 million in 2nd cent sales tax. That could potentially be low, depending upon how runnings goes. But I prefer to be conservative as opposed to overly optimistic. I have not expended or said anything to transfer out of there as of yet. I do anticipate we will need to put some of that into sewer based on the large dollar amounts that are coming out of there. This business improvement district is an entity that was created by the commission just in this last year. It has in the area of around 30,000 in it. So we would project that it'll do the same again for next year. So this is that additional $2 per night for people that are coming in. Special maintenance fee, these, oops, should pop back up there. We have that estimated revenue left at where it was for 2022, only because we haven't gotten specifics from the county yet on where to project that. So we just left it where it was. And right now we have 146,000 allocated to chip seal for 2022. And then I have potentially in here highway 34 turn lanes, depending upon when that gets done, if we see those bills in this year or next. Our swimming pool debt service, we are in our last 2022 is our last year of that. Grant Circle TIF, we are in the final year of that as well. This would be that strip mall across from Dakota Butcher that we're in the final year of that TIF. We do have, then we still have the new TIF for the hotel and eventually convention center that is in place for another 19 years. We just started paying on that one this year. Water fund. We have calculated 2.91 million in grants coming in there. Did I say that right? 2.091 million. Miscellaneous, I did adjust all of our interest earned throughout, just because interest rates suck and there's no way we're getting multiple percent. It's barely anything currently. Operating revenue, we've got basically very similar to what it was last year. We did not increase any rates. We do have long-term debt issued. We anticipate paying or borrowing 4 million through the end of this year for that RD project, with the other 3.5 million into next year's borrowing. I don't. how many meters we add for like new properties for this year. Reserves within the water fund. These are reserves that we're looking to apply. 10,000 out of the tower fencing reserve, 37,000 out of the depreciation reserve, 25,000 from well maintenance, and 25,000 from plant equipment and repair reserves. Not much difference in our purchase of water. Most of these are all the same or relatively close. Capital improvements for the water department. 225K. Well, this is carryover from 2022, something we budgeted for, and that has not been expended due to COVID availability of our COVID making materials unavailable. 25K for well maintenance, 25K for plant equipment and repair. Those were the items that we were applying reserves from up above. Water distribution. Not much insignificant changes till we have dues and subscriptions. That's an area of change there. A good chunk of that applicable to UtiliSmart and some of these AMI upgrades that have been put in place. And then as we get down into the improvements for 2022 within the water, we've budgeted 5.2 million. 10K coming for security for tower, 32K that's AMI, another 10,000 that's AMI. Additional, looks like some projects with additional inflation, and then a big portion of that is obviously the RD project. An additional 100K for RD project hydrants. That are not included within the actual RD project. We have specific hydrants that we like to use, is my understanding. And then capital outlay is $37 million for a new pickup, 1,700 for a slide-in toolbox. And that 37,000 of that is coming from reserves. And then a mini excavator. And this is split out between departments, but it's like an 85K total budget for that, 17K coming from water. As I roll down into the admin piece of that. Part of probably the most significant increase in that is related to interest from our interim financing for the RD loan. That adds around $100,000 to that budget. As we go, I've been working on plugging in transfers in and out, but I wouldn't, at this point, I'm not comfortable until we get the rest of the RD stuff in there to calculate. In revenue for the electric fund, interest is the big significant difference from last year to this year. Again, interest rates being really low. We did not adjust anticipated revenue for electric sales. So that's basically right on target with where it was for last year. Did not increase anything for the basin electric either. Reserves applied, meaning reserves that we're looking to use from the electric fund, approximately 80,000 from the gen plant reserve, 22,250 from the Washington Avenue project reserve, 25,000 from the Center Street lights, and then 120,000 from the bucket truck reserve. Yep. You don't, but you have 3.5 million in cash in the electric fund. So you have definitely more than to cover.
Reimbursed within 2 months.
The bucket truck, the one didn't we just order a bucket truck today, this year?
We expect the bucket truck to be a little more than a year out.
Yeah.
So that, so
Correct.
we ordered it in that.
Right, it's very possible that this expense won't actually be made in 22 because how far out it is, but we wanted to get that ordered in because if we want.
Yeah, if we get lucky and it shows up early.
700 and some odd days.
6 or 7.
Yeah, so that's what we estimated it would be, so, yeah.
It'll be a while.
It's a big one.
Electric production budget right in line with where it was last year. Transmission budget a little bit higher. Again, that's where that bucket truck is plugged in there.
Did we take that out? And move to reserve? Did we move
Oh, I
it
did.
out?
I took the dollar amount, not the description. Yes. So what we did was we rolled, we put an additional 65,000 into reserves for that bucket truck purchase. I did not change the description that you sent over, sorry. We have 686,000 potential in electrical projects that from DGR, AMI meters, another 160,000. That's split. You'll see 104,000 applicable to the electric budget. Additional AMI upgrades, another 31,000 applicable to the electric budget, and then 3-phase meters, another 2,700. And those are essentially your differences for 2022 from 2021. You'll see, and I didn't point it out. We did break engineering services out that are specific to improvements and put them with the improvements as opposed to in our regular operating budget because they can fluctuate it based on the size of the project. Electric admin expenses, significant change there is allocation of wages and how we present that. We did do a little bit of allocating Jameson's, Kristen's, myself. We looked to with new engineering and allocating those all out there. So that's where those, so that they all are.
The commission and mayor are all our costs. held in the budget.
They are currently. Yeah, we do not allocate out the commission.
I don't think that's fair.
You think we should?
Yeah, we covered the utilities, we should be, and solid waste, we should break a little money off all of that.
Sure.
Everyone endures us. They should.
They should get more. They probably want less of you. I'm just kidding.
I was secretly happy with this.
But yes, I can allocate the mayor and commission out to them as well. Our debt service went down for the gen plant operating with that refinance. Last year we were paying 390,000 in. This year our debt on that is 359. So that's less expense coming out of there. These are numbers that we are looking to put into reserve. 65,000. That's that bucket truck. Depending, and should that bucket truck show up in 2022, then we would obviously look to move from those funds from reserve into the operating budget to purchase $10,000 into the backhoe reserve, 50,000 into the load management upgrade reserve, 97,250 into substation replacement. I do have a note in here. I did not find anything in prior years regarding an AMI reserve. I know there was discussion about it, and we can certainly discuss that further. Sewer fund revenue, only major difference in miscellaneous revenue again is that interest piece. Sewer charges, we projected pretty much same as last year. We will probably look to need to transfer funds in, and I'm guessing from the second cent fund into help with the sewer, based on the large section of that, the RD project that is applicable to sewer. Actually, I should scroll back up there just a second and highlight those. We would be looking to use approximately 460,000 of reserves that are in sewer, and current sewer reserves are just under 700,000. Right, no, sorry, no, current, today they're at 1.028 million. And we would look to use just under 500,000 of those reserves at this point.
Reimburse second cent at the end of the project? Are we just looking for it for financing, or are we doing?
We have interim we have financing in already for sewer. Just based on there's certain parts of that project that aren't eligible for financing, primarily phase 1A.
Phase 1A, the sewer was
Not included.
so we're not eligible for financing through our. Then phase 1B, phase 2 were eligible, so we added
Yep.
them in. But the phase 1A was already.
We didn't have enough money in sewer to cover the sewer expense?
There's in the sewer budget.
700,000
Okay.
cash.
Yeah, 700, yes. So 1.7 million, but then do you want to use up all of your cash so you have no operating cushion in that?
How much money? Subsidize those utilities.
Um,
We use COVID money for that?
Yes, it could come. The COVID money is currently sitting in the general fund. It could be used that way.
I'd
Yes,
rather use second cent for streets. So I
sure,
have my troubles, but I mean, what?
sure. The
I'm
and
way over my allotment of comments. So I'm just-
ideally, I, as I mentioned, even with the conversation about looking to bond the streets, and using second cent fund for the future RD project or SRF funds that are projects that we're looking to do. We have 9th and Union coming up as well, and that's what 1.7,
Yeah, it's actually 2.5.
2.5 million.
For everything, if I remember correctly. And, you know, the idea there is the SRF come after the financing, they pay it right out of the SRF, out of money, if you will, and then we finance it at the end. And then we're anticipating some significant amount of loan forgiveness, which is the same as a grant. Somewhere we're hoping around the 40% mark, give or take a little bit, we'll see where we're at, but we can almost double our money. And so the idea was to do as much of that as we could. And we were originally going to try to do the 9th and Union project all out of our IIP funds, which was second penny plus the water and sewer. We've added that to the state water plant, so we can have that eligible for the SRF, which will make our money go that much farther. So that's the plan right now.
Back up to that. So the improvements that we're looking at within the sewer for 2022 in the range of that 4.7 million. That includes the 9th and Union. That's not just the RD project. There's additional in here for capital outlay for machinery and auto equipment. We have budgeted in here $200K for a camera truck, and part of that mini excavator is included in that. We had discussions on whether or not it makes sense to contract out looking at those sewer lines, or to purchase, and based on the large number of sewer lines that we would be looking at, the thought is that it's probably beneficial to purchase and maybe or maybe not resell later. Sewer disposal, not a significant difference there. It actually dropped, but it's just reallocating individual wages to admin versus the operational side of that budget. The additional increase here, part of that is tied to the website. And look here. We have Avenue, both Avenue and Encode in here. Part of that will drop off as we move in with Tyler, but that we will also incur additional conversion costs due to the delay. And so I left it in there so that we're not short funded in those areas. I think that's about it there. I have in the sewer fund, 50,000 going into the vacuum replacement. And then I'm gonna just leave a disclaimer here that the community center budget is still a work in process. We had meetings already this morning and they have 4 more scheduled in the next week. So I'm just not even gonna touch on that at this point. Yes, it's got to go through the 4-person board before coming here. So I would ideally like to keep it no more than we transferred last year, but until they.
Where's it coming from?
In the past, it's come up. Well, trying to track where it looks like it's came from, but it looks like it was transferred out of utility funds into the general fund and then from the general fund into the community center fund. Why, I don't know. Why it just wasn't transferred directly. I can't answer that. We transferred in 146,668 this year. And DSU transferred basically 150 and 100,000 with that 60-40 split. We will probably, before end of year, it will come to the commission to request, I'm guessing in the range of $150,000 to $200,000 more for 2020. That's what I anticipate they'll be in deficit by end of year. Solid waste, we consolidated recycling and solid waste together. So you'll see that there's increases in those areas. And I have notes on the sides of here, but basically we just took them and consolidated them all into solid waste. We're basically transferring funds from solid waste into recycling to cover recycling expenses, and it just didn't make sense to do that. The only major area of difference here, they'd look to purchase a new garbage truck for 2022 at approximately 200,000, of $6,000 for a dump body, $50,000 for a skid steer, and with that, and 56 of that would be paid out of reserves, not operating. We would look to put in 36,400 into reserves. And well, the solid waste fund operates at, have a deficit of about 200,000, basically the cost of that dump truck, but there's plenty of cash in there. Solid waste fund has $614,000 in their cash balance, so it would eat up about 200,000 of that. So that's a lot of information. Anybody have questions?
At the end.
That is the end.
That's the very first thing you said.
Yeah. Right.
How much did they put away for the top one and the back one?
30. You did go way back to the beginning. Just a second. Right. Yeah, as I say, it was around 30, wasn't it?
But we're paying anywhere between $130, $150 a month for a porta potty now. Which.
I say, because you're already going underneath the ground there, right? Yeah.
Right.
Is there any way of putting a permanent bathroom at Memorial Park? We just spent $279,000 on equipment and it's used. I think we need to look at putting a bathroom there. Should have been put there when the warming up.
I don't think Mike would argue that. I don't know.
It's at another bathroom.
What did you say a porta potty is?
Depends on, I think a regular one's like 132 and then the ADA accessible.
Well, we made that part ADA, so we couldn't have 156 times 12.
But I don't know, if there again, it's, the 30,000 is based on that they're already doing where you would maybe start at top on that.
We got water in there now, right? At Memorial with
Fire hydrant.
fire.
The sewer, I don't know where it's at.
If there's general consensus that you'd like to see a bathroom put in there, staff can provide some numbers and.
Yeah.
brief you for the next
I
meeting.
guess, yeah,
They looked
that's
at
what
it.
I would like. You have,
I can't remember.
I know they looked at it, wasn't in the scope of that.
And there might be, well, yeah, it was a Ford Madison project. And you never know when the sewer's on the other side of the street or something. Might be a pretty big deal.
Do you want me to also reach out to Colliers regarding the city hall and looking to bond that?
Oh,
You brought it up. I'm just asking.
There's some smart folk, I think they would be able to have some good recommendations.
you want to buy that?
Sales tax bond.
We can get it at like 2%. It'd be crazy not to. Just trying to be fiscally responsible.
I understand.
I would agree with Jeremiah on this, to be very honest with you.
You bond-
Forgot he was on there.
My question, if we bond it, we potentially go for a vote, right?
No, that's it. That's if you do a general obligation bond. A sales tax bond doesn't. It's covered by the sales tax dollars already coming in.
Constitutional debt limit. But that's okay. I mean, we don't have any. I can see where we're at, I guess.
Yeah, I think we
I'd like to
can,
look at it as an option.
Yeah.
we can bring.
will.
And we
some
have
options
some
forward.
cash. We don't need to bond the whole thing. but
Yeah.
That's fine.
I think we should bond part of it. I mean,
I think we're certainly gonna have to be part of it, so we can reach out to professionals in that field to see what recommendations they would have for how to balance that.
it's tying up $1 million a year. I mean, I guess I'd like to see where that is versus just a bond.
Sure.
I can put more bathrooms in the parks. I was just kidding, Marshall. I think after that one, we'll be fine. For now. I mean, that one up at
I'm trying
Cyber
to
State.
give you a bath.
I know,
I mean, that's unusual.
don't look at that close to mouth.
That's right.
I'll take it.
Okay. I just know I live next by that park.
It's a good
It
idea.
is used a lot.
Yeah.
We might as
You're
well
right.
have nice bathrooms.
And it's a nice one.
Yes, it is.
So there's a lot of information that's thrown out. I want to make a note to the public that each of our commissioners has sat down with all of our staff and looked through it in more in-depth look for all the each parts of the budget. So they all have become mini experts on different parts of the budget because there's just so much information out. Kelly, you're not so sure on the
Mini expert.
Yeah, yeah. So I thank you all for your time in looking at that. Not trying to close the meeting up, we're still open to any-
Motion to
any
approve.
questions. Not quite.
You haven't-
I do want to make,
Two Mondays
I do want
ago.
to thank, I want to thank Sonia though for the hard work that she put into the budget too. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into the budget. And thank the rest of the commissioners for taking their part too as well. I think it's important from the finance side that we have good input from our department heads and our commissioners and city and so thank you.
I'd like to turn around and then thank Tess and Roxy as well. I know they spend a lot of time compiling stuff for those departments as well.
It's certainly a team effort. Thank you. I believe the plan is for 2 Mondays from now, about a week and a half from now, we'll have the first reading of the ordinance. That'd be the 1st of November.
Yes. We certainly can add additional budget discussions if you feel the need to. I can gather the information as well for Monday night's meeting with regard to bonding options, if that's the direction you want me to go.
I don't know when we need to bond it.
They would, yeah, you wouldn't have to do it right now, but
Once we decide to do it. that process goes really quick.
yeah.
We can do it now, just have a bunch of money.
Well, what they do is a bond anticipation note. So that locks in our rates now as opposed
We call it
to
a bin.
a ban, BAN.
Anyway, sorry.
So if we're looking to bond for the streets as well as for the city hall, I would look to do that. At least do that bond anticipation note before year end. Colliers has indicated that they're expecting, as we get into 2022, rates to really start to climb. And
Thank you.
Are you gonna send updated sheets once you get
I-
things? Like you said, you're moving salary things within. our-
Yep,
who you're adding and what you're doing. Are you gonna send updated stuff on this?
I will. I'm waiting for direction from the commission as far as where they'd like to put increases for next year so that I can,
Yeah. I was in the notes and only always have to do random stuff.
yep, absolutely.
I'm assuming they'll send everything.
I will.
That's-
Be public, unless we're not done.
Oh, I guess it didn't look.
I already think I put paper out here.
Yeah, nope, there's nothing. It's been a long morning.
Any announcements?
I don't think so.
Motion to adjourn. All in favor, signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.